Commission meeting, January 16, 2018. It's now 5:04. We'll note the time. I'm going to ask you to please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance to God. Gracious Father, we thank you so much for this evening. We have so many blessings that we thankful for in this country that we live in. We thank for the people in this community who are here tonight with interest. Thank you for this board who works so hard and diligently to serve. Thank you for our staff. Father, we want to please you in the way we present the business tonight, the way we handle the business. We ask that everything we say and do be honoring to you and to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So we ask for your presence now and direct us and guide us in your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the agenda presented before us. We need a consideration of a resolution to approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Keeper to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We have an agenda. Approval of the January 2nd, 2018 minutes. I've read those minutes. I believe them to be inaccurate. Removed. Do you have any corrections or additions at this time? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to approve the January 2nd.
Make motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Deloach to approve the January 2nd meeting minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the minutes approved. I appreciate the public being here. It's good to see a good crowd tonight. We don't often see quite as many, but it's always good. Our county is important to us. It's important to you. So we look forward to some good conversations and some good resolution. As we move into the agenda, we get to points that you may want to comment on. I encourage you to comment for maybe 2 minutes. There's a lot of people here, and several may want to have some comments tonight. If there's someone representing a group of people, maybe a section of the community, and you have that person speak, that might be helpful too, but I want to communicate so we can hear from more folks. So keep that in mind as we move to the public comments of the agenda. Our agenda is posted on our website. It's posted at the clerk's office. Hope you got a chance to look at those documents, but all that has been done, so you can prepare for this meeting as well. With that, we're going to move into our meeting, and we'll begin with our consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. This consideration to approve to renew the memorandum of understanding with Effingham County United Methodist Church Campground for the use of a critical workforce shelter and/or post-event shelter, critical workforce shelter initiative. Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Keeper to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it is approved. We'll move into our new business. The first item is a consideration to issue a contract to Lane Brothers Auction LLC for 2018 surplus auction services.
Mr. Chairman, our purchasing agent had a family emergency and is not able to be with us tonight. So I'll be presenting this. As basically, we've done auction of our surplus equipment in the past, both vehicles and just office equipment and furniture and things of that nature. We typically use Lane Brothers, they're the cheapest out there, and it's $7,600 cost for the county, and we recommend renewing their annual contract to do this.
Okay, alternative one is to renew the contract with Lane. Do I have any question, discussion first from the board? Do I have a motion for alternative number one?
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Loper to approve alternative number one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it is approved. Second, item on the new agenda, consideration to approve to authorize the chairman to sign a termination letter to Republic Services Incorporated.
Mr. Chairman, the contract we have, this is for the sludge removal at our wastewater treatment facility. Republic Services is currently doing it. It's a separate contract from our sanitation bid. This is a termination letter. We will put out a request for proposals to replace this over the next couple months, but we're required to give notice, and it's time to do that for the May renewal.
Okay, very good. Any questions or discussions for Mr. Davis regarding this item?
Make a motion to approve alternative number one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Keeper, second by Mrs. Jones, to approve alternative number 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Thank you very much. Item number 3, consideration to approve a letter of engagement between the Effingham County Board of Commissioners and Lanier, Deal, and Proctor for audit services.
Good evening. Christy Carpenter, Interim Finance Director. Since 2015, Lanier, Deal, and Proctor, which was formerly Thigpen, Lanier, Westerfield, and Deal, has provided our audit services for the county's financial statements. It is time to renew that with them, so we just needed to get the letter signed
How long have they been doing our audit?
since 2015.
Are they currently working on transitional accounts for us as well?
They are working on all of it still, yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Any questions or discussion regarding the renewal of this audit contract?
I didn't get a chance to verify, so it's basically the same contract as we had before with just the new dates.
Yes, ma'am.
So is it a 2-year or a 3-year contract?
It's just for this year.
Okay.
So 1-year contract, no fee increase.
Correct.
Got a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve alternative number 1.
Motion by Mrs. Jones, second by Mr. Floyd to approve alternative number 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ms. Christie, you have an auditor. Thank you. Item number 4, discussion on Ash Road conditions throughout the county. I'll turn over to Mr. Davis in just a moment, but I'm going to ask the folks who are attending tonight that would like to speak to this, please listen very carefully. I know the staff and this board have been working very hard this past week in the midst of, and we tried to put out, I've emailed several folks, and I think many on the board emailed several folks, put on Facebook, trying to communicate some of the things that we're working on. I know Commissioner Floyd had a death in his family, so he's been out of pocket, so it's been a little slow here from him. I think you can appreciate that when father passes, you got some things you got to take care of in your family, so he's been real busy with that. But we've been working hard, and Mr. Davis has got a presentation for you tonight of all that's been going on. The staff's put a lot of time, a lot of hours in. So if you would listen to what we're trying to accomplish and do, that may answer some of the questions that you have come to ask tonight to be resolved. And if you haven't resolved your questions and we don't have something that suits you, that's when you might want to take a moment and speak and tell us what we're missing. But we'll do that at the end of the presentation. Okay? All right, Mr. Davis, would you have us out?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I start the actual presentation, I want everyone to know that our staff did go out. We have seen the conditions. We understand that it's a problem, and hopefully this will resolve some of the issues and questions that you have, but it is a very difficult situation, and here goes the presentation. But just know that we do care, and we are trying, and we've had staff working 10 hours a day, every day except for Sunday this past week, so including the holiday. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're moving forward. Just a brief background was we started putting ash down in 2001 was our first contract with Georgia Pacific. There was some discussion on the composition of the material in early 2002 from EPD. The county responded to some questions from EPD, and it was approved for the usage through EPD. And that letter is copied on the next page. But we started putting surface treatment down in 2004. And just so everyone knows, the winter storm actually destroyed approximately 50 miles of the 165 miles of ash road that exist in the county. This is the letter that we received back in 2002 permitting us to use the material. We provided them with material safety data sheets so they can see the composition of the material when we put it down. There's a lot of discussion about the coal ash and the use of coal ash. What was used was a CFB ash, which is only about 12% coal ash. And the remainder of it is lime and calcium sulfate. This is an approved material. It is widely used in construction. circles. My previous background is concrete pavement, and I can tell you that fly ash and CFB is consistently used in concrete in production. The problems we have, as everyone knows, we got an unprecedented weather event that came through. We got anywhere from 4 to 7 inches across the county. The roadways froze. Some of the ash roads were exposed and got wet prior to the freezing event. The freezing expanded the bases and it cracked the surfaces, basically destroying the surfaces. Some other problems we have with repair is that we don't have proper right-of-way. These don't have proper drainage structures. We don't have easements on much of it. The widening of these roads or the paving of these roads is very inconsistent based on, basically we can't even fit a paver down some of the roads. So the width problems, depth problems, and obviously the cracking. The damage assessment, we had 5 teams go out and cruise, and we rode every single every single mile of the 165 miles of Ash Road. We used an app to track the damage, but basically you can see there we got 47.52 miles of damaged surface that needs to be replaced on one event. It's very unprecedented, and it's widespread across every district. Switch over. This is a GIS map that we use. It's an app that the crews had. They're able to go out, take pictures of each road, identify how much damage was there, and that's how we calculated the total mileage. Not all of District 3, Commissioner Deloach, I apologize, but not all of District 3 was able to get the pictures updated into them because of lack of cell service, so that the data wouldn't upload. But we still manually tracked your road and the mileage of the damage. But can you zoom out just so that people can see the totality of the coverage of the county? Those are the damaged roads and the ones that we assessed and took pictures of. Now you can zoom in a little bit. Change the picture for me there, please, Marcy. And all of this is documented, and we use it's called a collector app. We use this app for hurricane debris, so we can provide statistics and data as well as pictures and evidence of the damage to the federal authorities and the state authorities when we're seeking funding for the repairs. Action taken to date. Flip back to my PowerPoint there. Thank you, sir. As I said, the 5 crews, the collector app that we used. We also met with the Portland Cement Association. As I said, that fly ash is a material that's consistently used in concrete, and it's mixed with cement additives to create concrete. But we met with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. We met with GDOT, and we spoke with our state delegation. To date, we have not identified any disaster funding. Even though the governor declared a state of emergency, there was not a federal disaster declaration. Therefore, there was no funding associated with the state of emergency announcement. GEMA has committed, and they actually came down, they reviewed, they evaluated some of the roads with us. They're aware of the problem and the widespread nature of it. They have committed to help us identify mitigation grants and other funding sources. GDOT, again, no funding available currently at that level, but our GDOT board member, Ann Purcell, is committed to working with the staff at the state level to see if they can identify some areas where they can get us some funding for specialized needs. And the state delegation, the same thing, committed to looking for funding, maybe even through a direct appropriation in the budget. So we're seeking that, we're asking for it. We're trying to identify alternative sources because, as you all know, it is next to impossible to replace 47 miles of road on a budget when you don't have that in it. Action taken. We've had 11 dump trucks running 10 hours a day since last Tuesday. We've put out 213 loads all across the county in all different commission districts, 53 roads, and as I stated, it was 10 hours a day throughout. These are the roads that were already. We can provide this list and post it on our Facebook and on our website for those that want to see this in a little bit more detail. But these are the roads that we actually did and we've addressed with dirt and sand to date. This does not include today. That's the problem we're facing. It's pretty unprecedented. It's not going to be easy to fix, but I've tried to come up with 5 different possible solutions and the cost associated with each, just so you can see the total complexity of the problem. The first one is to remove and replace the ash and put it back with a normal asphalt road. The cost involved of removing this would be approximately $500,000 per mile, and another $180,000 miles to do an asphalt topping on it. That is very complicated, but it's not the actual true cost, because there would be other costs on roads that don't have the proper right-of-way. It does not include engineering or design or stormwater runoff or any of the other associated costs that are factored in it. But that's generally the cost of mitigating the ash and replacing it with asphalt. The next one is a full depth reclamation with cement, which is the Cement Association's suggestion. Where basically you come in, you dig up the ash, you dig up the dirt, and you mix it all together with a cement solution, and you create a concrete, and the roads will be concrete. You'd come back with a small surface treatment of asphalt or chip and seal on that, and the cost associated with that. A third alternative is to come back and just pave over the ash with a normal road surface, a hot mix asphalt surface. To do the 47 miles at $180,000 per mile is $8.5 million. We have some of the same issues as the first solution. Is we don't have proper right-of-way, we don't have clearances, we can't get pavers down some of the roads. And it's also very difficult to do 100 yards on one street and a mile on another, to come in and have to tear down all the equipment and move it back and forth. So even though it's $8.5 million, that's based on just paving. It doesn't have all the other consideration costs involved.
Steve, I mean, you mentioned that, we talked about this, that solution really doesn't work anyway, because the asphalt does not stick to the ash. You're just trying to show
Yes,
our
sir.
friends out here that this is one of the popular solutions, but you've seen where
We have done that on, I think,
Bunny and Kessler
and Kessler Road.
didn't last, and so.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Bunny and Kessler had GAB placed on top, trying to bridge the gap, and it's still.
Still wouldn't.
That's what that solution would do.
So
It
even
would
though
put
it's
the aggregate on
it's not a
top.
workable solution, but it's just one of those solutions, yeah.
Typically, in a road building atmosphere, your road's really only as good as your base. If the base fails, the top's going to fail. So even if we put the asphalt on top, we could wind up with the same problems that we've had with the chip and seal. And where it would crack, water could penetrate. If it froze, it would damage the surface, just like we've had with the chip and seal.
Well, what we did on Bunny Kessler is when we did pay for some testing and decided to try 2 or 3 different roads with different functions on it. And Bunny Kessler was one of the ones that almost immediately, even though we had spent a fair amount of money on it, turned out terrible.
But you had to try.
Yeah,
We
we
tried.
did
That
it.
was
Some of the solutions we tried to see what it would do, and it didn't work.
I put that up there as just as a funding
Trying
consideration
to find
to show.
$40 million solution.
Yes, sir. Number 4, where we get into some feasible alternatives here, is to actually go back and put chip seal surface back on it, and contract this service out. We've done this, and historically it's been about $50,000 per mile to do the chip and seal. The ash has been out there for 17 years. Now, I've only been here for 4 months, but we didn't have any problems before the winter storm that were widespread to this point. Obviously, there was some routine maintenance that we were behind on that we needed to catch up on, but the complaints were very minimal compared to the situation that we have now. But nevertheless, to go back and contract out with a normal contracting service or a paving contractor to do the chip and seal back on top is $2.32 million to cover the damaged areas. That's not dealing with the maintenance of all of 165. The fifth solution, same solution as number 4, except for we actually purchased the equipment to do this. We hired the staff to do this. The equipment cost would be about $125,000. This is nimble equipment that's smaller, that can be broken down and moved quickly. It could do small areas or it could do larger areas. The cost of the new crew that would be dedicated to ash roads only and their repairs is approximately $185,000 for a year. The material cost is about $23,000, and that's both the asphalt binder, the emulsion, and the aggregate base that we would put on top of that. The total cost is $1.42 million. Go to the comparisons there for me, RC. The comparison, as you can see, it's really 4 and 5 are the only ones that are remotely feasible that we could somehow reach with a little bit of help with our partners at the state. But we saved $900,000 doing it in-house. And I want to point out, doing that last option, not only do we have a $900,000 savings, but we have the equipment when we get done to maintain the roads and continue to resurface existing roads that weren't damaged and go back and do smaller areas, and we would be able to get a better riding surface over a longer period of time, rather than doing what we're doing now, which is waiting until they fail and then come through and do a full contracting service to go out and do it. We'll have it in-house, we'll have it part of our budget moving forward, and we'll continue to
Do we
maintain
feel
it.
confident that the quality would be where we want it to be, doing it in-house?
Yes, sir. You have to hire the right crews and get them trained. But you hire a foreman and you hire a couple helpers, and then they will, for the straight manual labor, we will utilize labor inmate.
And when we say we're hiring, we're actually going through EOM.
That's correct. It would be through our public works.
Have the connections to hire the right contractors to use the equipment, so we're not just hiring.
How would we grind it up to get ready to put the chip and seal on it? I mean, that machine that does it.
We wouldn't be grinding it up, sir. We would use a grader and level it off, and then sweep it to make it clean, and then come back with the emulsion and the aggregate, and then roll it.
Once that stuff gets hard, you're not going to be able to scrape it. Once that stuff sets up, it's going to go back like it was. It's going to be hard, and you won't be able to scrape it.
Actually, I talked with EPD today, Jeff Owens, EPD, and he said that's one of the good solutions that he recommended was the chip and seal. It's a 1/2 inch layer, what's going to be.
That's correct.
But he did make the point, you have to have something, I think you said we have the equipment, we can do that. You've got to cut the ferrules, you've got to grind it, so it can't slide.
Right.
But you put that, he said they do this over dirt roads.
It's not a grinder, and just to maybe make sure we're getting our terminology correct.
That's the point.
We're gonna have a leveling up with a grader and a sweeper. It's not gonna be a grind.
But once that stuff sets up, you will not be able to scrape it with the motor grader. It's going to get hard as that wood, and all it's going to do is just skip down the thing, because that's the purpose of it, to get hard.
Well, you wouldn't scrape it with mud grader in the future, I don't believe, because chip and seal, you're going to put the emulsions down, you're going to put the 1/2 inch of rock, you're going to roll it tight.
I understand
And then we can come back and do another 1/2 inch later on. What I liked about the equipment idea is that we can actually, we need a short term and a long term. We need something that takes care of this issue for next year, get them all covered, all the damaged areas. It's something we can go back, so we don't have to wait till it freeze to find out the issues and start layering all the roads and then re-layering and staying above it.
Is it not the case that this particular equipment, which we don't currently have,
That's correct.
is a process in which we're not supposed to have to go back and scrape it after the fact, because this is going to do a better, more permanent type job. That's the whole, is that not the point?
It
When
is.
we
I understand what
hired,
you're saying. What did we do in the past? Did
when we hired, yes, last time, they had a machine that's supposed to cut it 12 inches deep. And that was supposed to get 4 inches of dirt mixed up in the lime. Then they leveled it off, they packed it, they come back and skimmed it, make sure it was all level. And then they put the chip and seal on top of that.
But did
But
we
it's
do that
good.
across the entire county, and that was on certain roads, so I don't think we did it across.
All of them that we redid, put chip and seal on it, we fixed all of them like that, every one of them.
I don't know.
And that's what cost $49,000, isn't it?
Mr. Chairman, what he's referring to is a full depth reclamation, where they,
Right.
a full depth reclamation comes in and it grinds, it basically goes, takes all of the ash and some of the subgrade and chews it all up.
Runs it up, starts over.
And
Did that on
it's-
some roads, but not all roads.
But
But
I,
that cost, the cost involved to do that is the $375,000.
it costs about $49,000, $50,000 a mile to do that.
Well,
Remember, we've got $375,000.
we got a
Do
quote.
what?
$375,000 a mile.
No, the last one we done, where's Brandon on that?
Brandon-
Brandon, what did it cost to redo a road with that big machine and grind it like we did
Commissioner
3 or 4
Loper.
years ago?
Commissioner Loper, I don't want Brandon to speak from the crowd right now. What I would like.
I know what it cost.
Okay, I understand. The $49,000 per mile to do, okay, was replacing the chip and seal, was just a leveling and a chip and seal. That's all. It was not the full depth reclamation. That is a much more expensive piece of equipment and cost involved.
I'll say this.
That is not right.
At this point, I'll just say this.
But I am arguing.
This is just how I feel. Based on everything that we have studied, and I feel like we've studied it pretty in depth. Some of the things that we want to try to do better, we want to try to learn from the past as well as we can. We have attempted some fixes ourselves. We know, number one, we must do something and we must do something now, right? That we know that. And so purchasing this equipment and at least beginning this process is a smart thing to start right now. And, you know, as time progresses, if we see this isn't working, then we can make some adjustments. But I do feel like, had we already owned this equipment and been doing some of this more in-depth maintenance along the way, maybe we wouldn't be as bad off as we are right now. So just for me, myself, I would say I'm in favor of purchasing this equipment, having our roads crew that work very hard and do a good job, go out and begin that process and see what that does do for us, based on what we've studied and what we've seen that this does in other areas.
If we could have put chip and seal on it before it froze, that would have helped a whole lot. But
Yes, sir.
we didn't know it was gonna freeze, so we couldn't do all that. But you've got to grind that stuff up, but once this ash gets hard, you're not gonna be able to scrape it with a motor grader, is what I'm telling you.
Well, this is what I will commit to you, Commissioner Loper, is that we will go back and we will review that contract and verify the cost factors that we've looked at in here. Because we have, been working on this for the last week. We've been reviewing the historical data, and that's how we established the recommendations that we did. But if this is inaccurate, I will verify that, and I will follow up with you tomorrow and verify about the full depth reclamation and the cost. Now, there might be a cost factor difference in there because what I recommended, or what was in one of the possible solutions rather, was a full depth reclamation with a cement added process. You can do what they call an FDR. You can do an FDR without the cement, or you can do it with the cement injection. So maybe there's a cost factor there, but I don't know that it would be $300,000 difference per mile for just a cement injection.
Are you talking about just blading the portions of the road that are broken now? You're talking about blading
Yes, that's
that
correct.
debris off?
That's correct.
Okay.
And in fairness to what Mr. Loper was saying, exactly right. If you found out there was only $50,000 or $60,000 to do a reclamation of it, then we want to come back to consider that. But if it's $300,000 a mile, we don't have the resources and won't have it.
That's correct.
However, and I did feel better after talking to ED today, saying that this is what they're doing on other coal ash roads. They're coming along and putting that chip and seal over them and having great success with it. does better than asphalt. And by having your own equipment and being able to do it on a regular basis, and as Ms. Jones's point, we can stay ahead of it, I hope. One thing I want to share with the folks before we get a chance to hear from them in just a minute, but we on this board, we're not throwing rocks in emails. We didn't create these roads out there, these issues, but we're committed to helping resolve them. We're your friends and your partners in this. And so our staff has been working very diligently to give us some solutions that we've asked for, not only to resolve the next 6 months to a year, but how do we go forward and not have these issues in the future? And that's why we're looking at buying this equipment so we can stay more on top of it. So although we didn't create a wheel with you, we want you to know that we're your partners and we're going to help resolve this Ash Road situation. But that will give EPD today.
So to that extent,
chip and seal is the way to go.
I will verify that information, and if I'm inaccurate, I apologize, but that was the pricing that we received for the full debt
That
reclamation.
should be easy to verify. We have those contracts from the past.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we need to do a full depth reclamation, maybe just where the ruts are. What
Right.
Mr. Lutfer saying is the grader's going to skip across those rutted roads. Maybe the first 2 or 3 inches would be all they deep around. So the grader would
We're
work.
not doing a full depth, right?
No, we can't.
No,
Yeah.
Still, we don't have nothing to even grind it down that much. I mean, I don't think we're gonna buy any equipment that will grind it down even 3 or 4 inches. If you did, that would be good.
Those grinders are millions of dollars, and probably $3 or $4 million just for one
And
grinder.
EPD was telling me they're actually using chip and seal on clay roads. So I don't know that you have to grind down if you have a good surface, good level surface. But chip and seal.
The key is getting to the level.
It turns out that this works.
Because it's
We
rutted
don't
up,
want to do
it's-
that. That would be a next step of a more severe, more costly,
That's
this
correct.
works
But
properly.
it's very important to get and I'm probably the biggest skeptic of any of this work, unfortunately. If we were to get it in a shape and be able to maintain that surface, we need to get the shape of the road right first.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be critical.
The leveling
Have any
is
chance
crucial.
of it.
To the best that we can without having the right-of-way acquisitions and so forth.
And it's not going to be an easy process or a fast process, but it's something that, on our recommendation here that's on the screen now, we feel like we can get the equipment within the next 2 weeks. We can have the staff in place. We can have all of the damaged roads done in the next 12 months. In the meantime, during that time, we'll maintain the dirt and the sand on the top surface to make sure that the ash isn't exposed. Spreading it out over a 12-month period, we'll be able to divide the cost between 2 budget cycles. So we have the 18 budget and the 19 budget. It'll be a stretch and it'll squeeze us, but we might have to bring some budget amendments back to you and squeeze in some areas that we don't want to, but
This is
I'm
doable.
confident that we can do that and we can make that happen. And the last bullet there is just basically what we've already talked about. So the next slide, please. Here's a picture of the equipment. Top left is the asphalt tanker that will hold the emulsion that you'd spray out. It's a tow behind. You got the steel roller, the sweeper there on the left, and then the one that's in the bottom right, which is probably the hardest to kind of make out there. That is an attachment that's basically a spreader that goes on the back of a dump truck. You have all the aggregate in the dump, and then what you can't see there, you can see the rope where the person would stand, but there's a manual level where they would release the aggregate as the truck is backing up and spread it out. So that's what the 4 pieces of equipment that we need to do this with. The other piece that's used to do the leveling in that is a grader, and we already have that in process. We've used it during this process of putting dirt and sand out over the last week and a half. So, next slide. These are some costs of some of the equipment that we've been able to find. These costs are in your folders. We're estimating about $35,000 on the sweeper, but that is not verified at this moment. The other 3 are verified. So the approximate cost is $125,000 based on a $35,000 sweeper. If we can find it for that, if we have to come back and do something more, but I'm confident if you approve $125,000, we can find a sweeper for that amount. Miscellaneous recommendations. We've had a lot of feedback. Some environmental groups have been out looking at the roads and had some concerns. that they've expressed to the press. To that extent, as I stated in the beginning, EPD approved the material. Georgia Pacific had a material safety data sheet that was presented to them back in 2002 that had the breakout of what the actual material was and the composition that we were using. That material was approved by EPD, and I am confident that it is safe. However, with a lot of your concerns, based on your feedback from the general public, to remove any doubt to any health concerns, we got 3 quotes that are in front of you there, and I ask for your approval on the Whitaker Labs there to do 20 samples. Those will be random samples across the county to test the data. One of the fears that we had was someone out there doing something that wasn't as scientific or as controlled, that this would be samples that would be done in a professional manner by a professional lab. And even the samples taken were specific bores. They're low-level bores, about 4 inches deep, 4 inches in diameter, where they can test these materials. And then what we haven't done since 2002 is test the composition of it. There might be some other material that might be from cars, or you could have antifreeze, you could have oil. There might be some other materials that have seeped into this. But by taking 20 samples randomly across the county, we can get a good understanding of it. We can do some high traffic roads and some low traffic roads, and in different areas, and maybe in creek areas. But while we were out evaluating, I want to express this to the public. While we were out evaluating, we were looking also for any kind of water runoff that was going toward any creeks or any streams. We found none. We had silt fence ready to go to put up if we found that. We did not find any of that. We understand it's messy, but we have not found any direct access from any of the roads into any of the streams or creeks while we were out evaluating the roads. But to that extent, I would ask that the board approve this sampling as a good nature, fair observation, and really to relinquish any doubt to the health hazard that it is.
I'm for that, but I'm going to raise one challenge to that, which you just mentioned briefly there, and you and I talked about it about Paul as well. This product was extensively tested. EPD had it done, and they approved it. My concern is that what you just said a while ago, some of this product's been on the road for 10 or 12 years. Somebody can spill something on the side road. The chemicals. We know what was in the product when it was put on the road. Would that not be more valuable than what's actually there now? And I'm not sure that you're gaining anything. Now, I'm okay with spending, if it takes $23,000 to help people appreciate, but I'm concerned about spending money when you have the chemical compound makeup when it didn't have any contaminants in it. You follow what I'm saying? From 10 or 12 years of use.
Well, I'll say this about that from my perspective. I feel like with River Keepers and some of the concerns that they brought forth, possible lawsuits and things like that, yes, I feel like we're only doing our due diligence if we test it now and are able to say to people right now, as it sits today, because what they care about actually is what is there right now. And I understand, maybe they have some spills and things like that, but that is the reason for doing it randomly in different locations, because it should show up that way. And Whitaker should be able to differentiate for those purposes. So
I guess it was all
I feel like
It's
it's
not all too. I mean, citizens, they want to test.
well, I guess it's all another thing too. If there was some chemical that had been put down since related, we could still address that and help the river as well. I mean, it might not be our ash road.
And I'll say this, there are chemicals in everything. I mean, there's mercury, there are things like they bring up, but the point of it is it at some kind of level that is a serious health concern or not? And that's what we have to do to prove to the citizens so that they can feel safe.
That would be good, but I'm like the chairman. I don't think that line is better itself since it's been laid out on the dirt roads. I think it'd be the same consistency. It's got the same stuff in it had 17 years ago in it. They approved it 17 years ago, and I don't think 17 years, I don't think it's changed.
Well, the county didn't test it. The county didn't test it 17 years ago. Georgia Pacific provided us something along with the contract.
Well, they had
We
other-
hold them completely harmless.
But they had other
Yeah.
people tested too. I mean, it was tested by different people.
I'm
But anyway.
in
But if it'll make everybody happy, spend the money and recheck it.
Well, and one thing I might do, Mr. Lover, too, because I think I agree with the concern there, but if there's something else there where it's broken up and it's leaching somewhere, we can detect it and solve it, or
We need to
create a
know.
detention area if we need to facilitate it. It may not be our compound, the road that's doing it, but we'll find something else maybe, so I'm sure we can help with that. Okay? Anything else?
Those are my recommendations, sir. And again, I want the general public to know that our staff has worked extremely hard to listen, to hear the complaints, act swiftly and quickly to get the dirt and the sand out there to cover up the worst areas. And, you know, we're doing the very best we can with the availability of funds and equipment that we've got.
And I will say that I'd like to say, I think from probably all of us, and they're going to say additional things, but a special commendation and staff, especially for our staff, number one, that has done all the research. This is a tremendous amount of research. And I think they have found us some good viable solutions. Additionally, we want to say special thanks to everybody that's worked on the project, whether it is some of our staff that went out and drove every single mile of these roads, and I believe videoed them and everything else, and did a good study, as well as all those that have worked for Public Works and through EOM that has been out there long hours trying to be sure that they could get these roads passable and more drivable for the citizens under the current problems that they have. So we say special thanks for everybody that did that. Commissioner Deloach suggested we go and thank them in person this morning at Public Works. So we were there at 7 o'clock this morning with donuts thanking them. But they worked really hard, and just want everybody that's here to know just how hard they have been out there trying to help.
Yes. Hopefully some of you recognize and saw your county staff going far above and beyond.
These are some good solutions that you brought.
Yes.
And
Thank you, Steve.
yeah.
Anything else from the board? Any questions or discussions, understanding, or recommendations? All right, I'm going to give the public, you've taken time to come out tonight, we appreciate that. So if you have a spokesperson, if there's something, I'm asking that if you could try to address the things that we didn't address, if you maybe don't like the options that we're doing, or is there an issue we haven't considered, those would be helpful as we try to make good decisions and help you and partner with you and support you in what you want to accomplish. So if you come to the mic before you speak, if you something we have an answer for you tonight, please state your name and where you live for the record, and if you could hold it to 2 minutes, that would be great, because there's a lot of folks here that might and come right ahead.
My name is Tanya Bonatadovas. I'm your Savannah River Keeper. I live in Augusta, Georgia, but our organization works the entire watershed from North Carolina to Savannah in South Carolina and Georgia. Just a couple of comments. I think each of you received a letter from us earlier highlighting some of our concerns. I think that this is not a situation to immediately send off alarms, but there are definitely some questions that need to be answered about the components in this. The fact is that in 2000, yes, this was an approved substance that was put in a lot of different places. Since then, a lot of those towns have had to remove it because of the heavy contamination that went along with that. You received that in your letter today. Information about a good example would be Camden County here in Georgia just had to remove theirs, or is in the process of removing theirs right now because of the water contamination issues. A couple of things that I heard that I slightly disagree with. Yes, coal ash can be used successfully in reclamation, and that is in examples like cement, where it is locked up. If I put my hand on cement, I'm not going to come off with a white hand. That's not the same situation here. This stuff has been allowed to be dusty. The roads were actually in disrepair before this event. This exacerbated the problem, but it's clear riding along that there have been problems leading up. So the dust and then the liquid, now that it's liquid getting on your skin, it's able to soak in. So that is a concern. That's why we've been telling citizens to keep it off of them. The other with the no runoff, we will be happy to share video if you would like. We have many, many places where it ran off into every creek. That's what happens when it rains. The solutions, you talked about the asphalt does not work, and then the last thing I'll say, I'm very happy that you're collecting samples. We would like to know what those samples, what heavy metals you're testing. for, because that really makes a huge difference. There is a set of heavy metals that are expected to be seen with coal ash, or fly ash or whatever. And the good news is that citizens usually don't have hexavalent chromium available, so your contamination, cross-contamination in your roads is probably going to be relatively slim. But I really do appreciate very much you looking into sampling this stuff before you move forward. I know that you took it not thinking that you were going to have a big issue down the road. Not only has it been a pain for you from the road start, from the very beginning, I also think Georgia Pacific, I am disheartened to hear that there was a letter signed absolving them of any liability, and if we can help resolve that, we certainly will. But as we move forward, I hope that they're able to hold their level of responsibility for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone behind you first, sir. She's already got a bundle in there. We'll let her go first.
My name is Kelly Farabee. I live on Beecher Drive. And first, I'd just like to address the testing, but it is really important to me that we test this. I've got 3 kids under 4, and so, you know, I believe in that old saying, trust but verify. So just because somebody says it's safe, I'd like to know from the sampling. And also, just from watching the presentation, I understand you guys have worked hard to come up with some solutions, but none of them showed any kind of benefit cost analysis, and I'd like to know, I understand some of these have a higher cost up front, but just because something is a little bit cheaper to start out with, I mean, is it going to be something that by the time 20 years from now we've spent twice as much as maybe replacing some of the roads and spending a little bit extra money up front? Because you know, I want something that's going to last, that is not going to be every year like, oh, is the county going to get out here and fix the road? And when are they going to do it? Because right now our road's in some pretty bad shape, and even before the weather last fall, they've been out there messing with the ditches and the drainage. And so like our driveway culvert when we moved in for 3 years was full of dirt. So that's kind of a concern that I have, is even if the county's going to take on that maintenance, that they're going to be consistent.
Sure.
Personally, I'm sorry, can I say, when I give a response, I'm only speaking for myself, okay? But just to try to address a little bit of what you said, if indeed the pricing that we're considering was even just double, if our one solution is 1.42 million, and it was double that to take it all up and do a complete new asphalt, then that might be considerable. But it's 32 million versus 1.42. So it's not to say that we won't do a longer term solution on some roads along and along, but I would say for right this minute, this looks like a good solution, and if it works, it works. And if it works well for a little while, we'll start phasing in the other, but there's no way to say today we could vote for a $32 million project no matter what.
Well, I'd like for it to not just say, well, we've got this temporary fix. If there's a solution that can be a long-term solution.
That's that for you too, is that every year we get some money from the state and we match it. It's called a MIG money. And we pay about $1 million plus a road a year. We're going to continue that. We go down to the base and we build a good base, and we resurface some roads, and some roads we're building roads. We're going to continue that process. A mill in this county, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, I want to say it's about $600,000 to $700,000 a mill. So if you're talking about 32 million, just imagine what your taxes would be. Our millage now is about 8-something mills. It'd be like 38 mills. So that's why it's not fee. That's all the heads go up. So we're going to continue to pay a certain amount of roads with asphalt. With the chip and seal, it's an emulsified chemical that actually seals the road. That's what I like about it. So it'll go around that material, it'll seal it, we'll put rock on top of it, make a nice firm surface, and we can come back having our own equipment and do another ½ inch later if we need to get an inch for it. So we think that might be a long-term solution for these ash roads. At the same time, continuing looking to redo roads about a mile or 2 at a time with the MIG monies and so forth.
Is there a list that you'll publish of the roads that are on the list to get?
It's published every year, it sure is. So you might want to know, we have a list of roads that are on the MIG priority. It tells you what's going to be resurfaced, what's going to be built, and you can look at that priority. And if you know a road in your area, in your district, talk to your district representative, say, hey, don't forget our road, and they might, as we make our budget each year, put that road on the higher. But we'll continue to address the asphalt roads as well.
And we typically try to prioritize it based on most heavily traveled.
You go out and try to inventory the most damage and look at potholes. Always
Will this presentation be published publicly, like on the website
Yeah, I
or?
think we can put it on
We
our
can post
website.
it.
Now, let's
And
say it's on
also
our website. We're gonna try to do a lot more on our website. This particular, we do a lot now, but on this particular subject, so you can have it as we move along.
Put it on our Facebook page as well.
Very good, thank you, appreciate your comments. Yes, sir? And we've got about 5 more minutes, and we'll take more time if needed, but we got a public hearing we have to do. We announce at 6 o'clock on our meetings, and so those who are here for zoning, when they get that, that'll be a few minutes. If we don't finish this now, I'm not going to hang around. Yes, sir?
My name is Adger Kirby. I live on Midland Road,
Yes, sir?
and I fully concur with what this lady was presenting to you. I highly recommend we do this study to prove that there's no health damage there to the people. And I fully agree with that option 5 to get something done. Get it done now. Don't wait 2 years to do it.
Well, I think if we get to a vote tonight, you're going to see both those things be voted for. And that means we'll start getting the equipment and the staff tomorrow.
And I was looking at your job board outside there, and I see where you plan to get fully qualified correction officers for less than $13 an hour. I think the people you need for this job is more qualified to draw a higher salary than what you're planning to give the deputies. Not that they aren't qualified either. They are qualified
Yes,
too.
so the
but,
correction officer doesn't, he has to be there to watch the inmates who are doing the hand labor work with the brakes and pulling and so forth. They may be working some equipment. There'll be contractors who will pay much more.
What we budgeted for this repair is at a higher price and it's
Yes.
for
Yeah,
professional
with-
service.
It'd be professional service. Those are just the hand laborers that we pay for because they're out here. And they have to have a guard there.
Yeah, well, the point I'm trying to make, sir, is that I think some of the daily working force of the county is grossly underpaid for what they do, as far as minimum wage is concerned and what the job markets are going at. And I'd just like to see some qualified people doing this, and it's going to take money to get them. And that's all I have.
Very good. Well, we're trying to work hard on getting our staff, so we get them all increase this year. We're trying to get those wages
Thank you.
up.
Can I make a mention of something? And I don't know if you mentioned we voted on, it's on the agenda for a discussion item. So I know if we were to feel like we need to vote, we would have to add it to the agenda for a vote.
But I think we can do that because of the emergency of the nature of
Yes.
moving forward, yes.
Yes.
So we're going to do that if we have time.
My name's Mike Walter. I'm a retired iron worker out of Savannah. We live in Beecher Drive. This problem's been going on for years. This ash road's been peeling apart for years. This recent freeze, everybody keeps saying, this road, Mike Worth came out back in the fall and took pictures. There's no, cars can't even pass. There's no width to even pass a car without hitting the school bus or the dump truck or the garbage truck. This guy here is telling us that it don't leak in the creeks. I can take you behind my property and show you where it runs directly into Jack's Branch, which goes directly into the river. And also behind other neighbor's house, it runs down into a swamp behind her house that ties back into Jack's Branch. There's at least 3 places. This stuff is ruining our vehicles. It peels paint. If it's not harmful, why is it peeling paint off the bottom of 4-wheelers and golf carts? We want something done. We done complained. We done had all the neighbors fill out the paperwork. We done turned them in. We keep getting the runaround. Y'all change commissioners. The buck gets passed to the next person. Nothing is done.
Tonight, did you agree with the alternative we're trying to?
It needs to be, I agree with Mr. Loper. It needs to be ground up and got out of there. I mean, it might cost, but we didn't ask for it to begin with. This ash was shoved down our throat. The roads were fine when they were dirt. We had no problems. Y'all came in, or y'all didn't. That was the group before y'all.
Right.
We want something done with it. We're tired of it. And if y'all don't know, y'all dumped it in, or y'all didn't, but the other group dumped it into the roads. We don't know what. We've been eating fish, killing deer, eating deer meat off our properties and stuff.
Well,
We don't know what this stuff's
There's no
doing.
evidence of any of that. We're going to test it for that. And once again, I spoke to EP today, and he indicated there's no issue.
And we give Brandon Edwards, our neighbors, to give him a fit in my neighborhood. I mean, our roads our ditches hadn't been maintained, the culverts don't get cleaned out, it don't drain, the stuff don't drain the stands, we got mosquito problems. And like I said, it's
What did you name your, what was your road?
Beecher Drive and Red Maple Drive.
We'll see if a couple of us can get out there and look at it particularly.
Miss Debbie Stokes complained 10 years ago, and we've randomly dropped complaints over the phone. They just get brushed under the rug. Y'all change commissioners, y'all change employees with the county. It just moves along, moves along. I mean, we were told 10 years ago this road was going to be paved in less than a year. and it has not been done, and it's horrible. Y'all don't live on Ash Road? Come out and drive down it, try to have coffee on the way to work in the morning, see how that works.
Well, we're trying to
Pull
address.
your neighbors out, come home from work after a long day and pull your neighbors out with your four-wheel drive truck trying to get them home, so they can see their kids.
I drive some ash roads, and some are definitely in worse condition than others.
Oh, yeah,
There's all different levels of problems, for sure, and we're aware that there are problems, but what this freeze did was expose a severe problem.
Right.
And so there's no way it's not on everybody's radar. We intend to fix it. That's what we're here for.
Right, we want something done, we're tired of getting the runaround.
We're gonna test it, and we're gonna fix it.
Mr. Chairman,
Is there anything else besides test and fix it we need to talk about tonight? We have to go to
Yeah,
public
that's
hearing in 2 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, can I say two things?
Yes.
Sure. Go for it.
First of all, I want to clarify my comments on the runoff.
You said direct access.
We found no evidence while we were out evaluating the roads, which we took pictures, okay? Now, it was not raining at the time, but the roads were extremely damp and were still in a mush and wet capacity. So, I want to clarify that I didn't say that there was never any. I said there was no evidence that we found. First of all. Second of all, Beecher Drive, I was there personally. I actually met that gentleman on the side of the road and spoke to him that day. It is very, very bad. And Beecher was on a Tier 1 list for the short-term work program, set to be resurfaced already prior to this event. And since this event, it is a 100% total loss, the entire road. It's a little over a mile road. So know that that is going to be a priority road, not because you came up and spoke, but because it was already on a list of
Mr.
Tier
Davis, are
1.
you saying because of the condition that everything was on the priority list, it's going to be some limit money? It's going to be
Yes,
spent
sir.
toward that money? Okay.
That's not.
Which is a little different. That's going to be getting down more to the base and redoing the roads. That's going to be a little more than we're trying to do with the chip and seal of the current ash road.
Because it's been identified as needed.
Right, and it was on our limited list, priority list. Okay, very good. Yes, sir? This has to be the last one for a little bit, because we got a public hearing we have to go to.
Tom, off Bethany Road. Bethany Road hasn't been touched since we've lived there 5 years. This is a road maintenance disaster waiting to happen. If you don't keep the roads sealed, then this is what you're going to get. And I applaud the Vice Chairman for highlighting that. Moreover, you got to keep the trucks off there. The logging trucks and the dump trucks are destroying the roads. So it's going to compromise the roads sooner. So if the periodic upkeep and maintenance of the roads is not baked into the plan, then it's just doomed for failure. Call me a doubting Thomas, but maybe from my battle scars of low bidder contracts, the plan really needs to be thought out well in advance and thoroughly to make sure that you got an A-team crew out there doing this and that they can actually pull this off in 12 months. I doubt it can happen because you got to come right back behind it and continue to chip seal the existing roads. Otherwise, you're throwing good money after bad.
One thing I'll say in response to that is, I agree about having the right process in place. I do think that we need to do something imminently, and I like the equipment purchase and where we are. You know, there's nothing that says 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, that we can't come back and say, you know what, in order to get this done in 12 months, we're going to have to add 2 more people and get this other piece of equipment. We may have to do that. We may have to adjust this.
Or contract,
But rather than-
So what do you mean when you
rather
say
than waste-
Bethany Road hasn't been touched? What do you mean by
It
that?
hasn't been chip sealed.
Okay.
You have to seal it wholesale. You've got to keep the crust over the ash.
None of our.
Yeah, I thought you meant there was no maintenance, because I know for a fact, I've talked with Brandon Edwards, and there's been a lot of work done out on Bethany Road. But I understand it hasn't been chip sealed, a new surface, but we've done what we can so far at this point.
I'm anxious to see what the maintenance was. Squirting some tar and throwing some rocks on it's not
So
helpful.
what we're going to do is chip seal the very thing you're asking for. That's the right presentation. That's what we're trying to prove tonight. Is move it to an agenda item and prove to chip seal these roads.
And I don't know if everybody understands, because all of these roads are in such a different scenario. But some of the big problems are, this is a little county with many, many, many dirt roads that some were wide, some were not wide. Some were meant to be single lane. They were never meant to be paved. They were never supposed to be paved. But previous commissioners chose this route as a solution to try to make them better than they were. And in some ways, it created problems. So we're trying to figure out the best solution to some of those scenarios. Because, you know, in some of those cases, even if we wanted to acquire right away, I mean, the only way we could is if we took the property from people because they won't give it. So it's all these different scenarios that we're under, and I understand about, you know, the logging and the dump trucks, and, you know, we have talked about some different scenarios where we may need, just like we do on constructions, when we build a subdivision, we have to make a bond so that if we create damage or it's in disrepair, then we have to fix that. Maybe that's something we have to look at. I don't know. We do know we don't have all the solutions tonight, but we have a start.
Appreciate the commissioner's attention on this. Barbecue at my house on Saturday. Bring your galoshes.
What was your address? What was that address, Mr. Daddy?
Okay, we have to chip seal, what we're gonna try to do this evening. All right. We need to go to our public hearing because it's 5 after. When we come back, I'll ask for a motion to place this item on the agenda for a vote to approve the resolution that you recommended, as well as the testing to verify if there's any issues in the chemical compound that could be causing some contamination. We'll try to eliminate that concern as well. But we're not going to take that motion now because we want to be fair to those who are here for zoning, public hearing, and coming at 6 o'clock. So we need a 5-minute break, or you good? Everybody good? We're going to stop here at number 4. We're going to go into our public hearing. We're going to turn to that part of the agenda. Thank those again who attended. If you want to hang around for our decision at the end, that'd be great. If you don't, we appreciate you coming out. I'm going to give a few minutes for those who are dismissing, so we should be able to. One quick item before we move into our public hearing tonight. Appreciate Willie and Ellen being here tonight. I'm going to ask the board if they would, let's go ahead and consider item number 5 while they are here. We can do both. If we can take action on number 5 on the agenda, and then we'll add an item to the agenda, and then we'll move to the public hearing. Item number 5 is consideration to approve a resolution to recognize and remember Joanna Hirsch Wright. We have a resolution. I think we want to do some additional work on that resolution. We want to go ahead and approve that tonight, so we can set a date, invite the family to come and honor them, take some pictures, and recognize her value to this community. So can I have a motion to approve resolution, recognition and remembrance?
Make a motion that we approve the resolution to honor Joanna Floyd Wright.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Jones, second Mr. Loper, to approve the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. So we want to thank you, Willie, for being here. Again, we can't ever thank you enough for sacrificing her being here late at night, working early in the morning, and helping us so much.
We love doing this, sir.
We still talk about it. Getting good things. And there's been some hard shoes to fill. I'm going to entertain a motion to add to the agenda, make it number 11, to consider approval of the alternative given us tonight. We'll make an official motion on that alternative so it's clearly understood. But we could add an agenda to make a motion to add to the agenda to approve an alternative for our ash roads.
I I'll make a motion that we add item number 11 to new business to vote on an alternative to approve our ash roads.
Motion by Mrs. Jones to add a vote for alternative to ash roads tonight, second by Mr. Keeper. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Hearing none, it carries.
Chair, I just want to note, anybody that's still here for that item, there'll be another opportunity to have anything to add.
Additional comment, yeah, additional comment, additional comment. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jones, if you could revise your vote to say new business 11 and 12, because I believe we'll need a vote for the testing as well as the equipment.
We can make that, we can make one vote.
I can make it in one motion.
Yeah.
I can totally make that.
If
motion.
you want to.
That was my intent.
Yeah, it's all part of the same.
So should the clerk?
I'd rather not, but
If you rather not, I'll do it your way. Thank you.
Will you amend your motion to say that number 11 and 12, 11 being alternatives for improving the Ash Road and 12 being approving the testing?
I'd like to amend my motion and change, leave item 11 as is and add new business number 12 to make a motion for the testing of the current existing Ash Road 20 samples.
All right, you made the motion, Mr. Keeper.
I'll second that for that.
Okay. All right, we have a revised motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it still carries. Okay. All right. Apologize to those who are here for the public hearing tonight. We're going to move into that portion of our business. Pull mine up. All right. The first item in the public hearing is the planning board recommends approving an application by Billy and Carla Hill to rezone 1.03 acres located at 2910 US Highway 80 from AR1 to B3 to operate a used car lot, map 355C, parcel number 11, first district.
Mr. Chairman, like you stated, Mr. and Mrs. Hill have recently acquired this property through a family. They currently operate a car lot here in Springfield on Laurel Street. This would be a satellite location for them. So there would be no car haulers coming on site. The vehicles they intend to sell would be coming to the location here in Springfield. Any service work would be done at Springfield. And then each one of them would be transported down to this location. Staff and the planning board recommend approval. They have existing access on Highway 80, and there is commercial property across Highway 80 and around this particular property.
Very good. Is Billy or Carla Hill like to say anything now? Okay.
We're good. Unless you have any questions of us.
All right. I'll open the public hearing and see if there's anyone who might like to speak for this rezoning. Anyone here present tonight that'd like to express any concerns or speak against this rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll see if the board has any questions or comments.
I'm going to pass the property and standards commercialized in that area.
Sure.
It's
Okay. No other comments? I entertain a motion.
make a motion to approve based on the planning board staff recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Keeper to approve planning board staff recommendations. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Carries. We have a second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Billy and Carla Hill to rezone 1.03 acres located at 2910 US Highway 80 from AR1 to B3 to operate a used car lot, map 355C, parcel number 11, first district. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Second motion, second reading. Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Loper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. We'll move to item number 3 on our public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Josh Calvert to rezone 9.6 acres located at 146 Nice Road from AR1 to AR2, map 396, parcel number 20 on the first First District. Mr. Arcee.
Mr. Chairman, Calvert's own this 9.6 acre parcel. There are currently 2 dwellings on this parcel. I believe Josh and his wife live in one, and in-law or parents live in the other one. They'd like to be able to subdivide this property due to the nature of the lot size being 9.6 acres. They'd have to rezone to get smaller than 5 acres. And they're possibly looking at doing 3 tracks, but definitely 2. The 3 would still fall under minor subdivision. Staff and planning board have recommended approval.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing on this. Mr. Calvert here would like to speak.
Mr. Calvert is working on his way from here on staff. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, thank you very much. We're having a public hearing. Anyone else wanting to speak for this rezoning? Anyone here that would like to speak against this rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and see if there's any questions from the board. Hearing none, I entertain this. Oh, who's moving something? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the planning board staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion to approve, second by Mrs. Jones, first by Mr. Floyd. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Moving to the second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Josh Calvert to rezone 9.60 acres located at 146 East Road from AR1 to AR2, map 396, parcel number 20 on the first district.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Deloach. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Move to number 5. Planning board recommends approving an application by Rocky Creek Properties to rezone 6.57 acres located at 1847 Hodgeville Road from AR1 to AR2 for minor subdivision map number 435, parcel number 44 in the second district.
Mr. Chairman, Rocky Creek property has recently acquired this property. A few months back, y'all had approved the rezone to recombine some of these lots. Since then, Rocky Creek's purchased it. We would like to place 3 lots on the 6.57 acres. And we'll have access to Hogville Road, and they intend to place a road back to these 3 lots. Staff and planning board would recommend approval.
Okay, is Rocky Creek Properties here? We'll open the public hearing if they'd like to speak. I don't see him here tonight. Anyone else like to speak for this rezoning? I don't see anyone speaking against this rezoning. Seeing none, I'll ask the board if you have any questions. Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Jones, second by Mr. Loper, to approve staff recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. The second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Rocky Creek Properties to rezone 6.57 acres located at 1847 Hodgeville Road from AR1 to AR2 for a minor subdivision map number 435, parcel 44 in the second district. Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Jones, second by Mr. Deloach, to approve staff recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. One last item. Public hearing to planning board recommends approving an application by Ray Connor to rezone 2.72 acres located on Texarkana Road from AR1 to AR2 to subdivide into 2 lots, map number 401, parcel 29 in the third district.
Like I said, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Connor recently purchased this property, wishing to divide into 2 buildable lots. Unsure exactly how it's going to divide it up, whether straight down the middle or in half this way. But the staff and planning board have recommended approval.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is Mr. Connor here? Would you like to say anything, Mr. Reed, anything for this? Okay. Some shy folks tonight. Anyone else here tonight like to speak for this rezoning? Anyone present that would like to speak against this rezoning? Seeing none, I'll ask the commission if you have any questions, comments. Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the planning board staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Logan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. And the final item, second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Ray Connor to recognize rezone 2.72 acres located on Texas Road from AR1 to AR2 to subdivide into two lots, map number 401, parcel 29 in the 3rd district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Motion Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Logan to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. So it's Richard's already done. All right, we're going to go back to our agenda. And we're going to look at item number 6, discussion on honoring Noel B. Kessler and initiating a policy to honor deceased employees. Now, I know we have a lot on our plate tonight. Have we had opportunity to prepare to discuss this, or do we need the board want to share anything or discuss, or want to leave this to another item? I know we've been really swamped this week.
Yes, sir. I mean, the clerk has worked on it some this week, but
Are you prepared
to get some
go ahead and
comments?
share with us? Or would you like to know?
If we can put it off to the next agenda, I think we just need to prepare the listing, as you all requested, of how we'd like to honor deceased employees, just to get some more feedback from you all and do a little bit more background staff.
I think that would help. We look at those recommendations we can discuss, and I know y'all be more than busy.
What's the date of the next meeting?
Possibly the 7th.
You want me to table it possibly the 7th?
I got
Just say next meeting, the next agenda.
Okay.
And I apologize, Mr. Chairman, as you saw in the presentation, we have been absorbed the last couple of weeks.
We understand.
No, we appreciate all the hard work. We've been following you, looking at the Facebook pictures of you guys working hard, figuring this stuff out. And appreciate all the phone calls to get input and discussion that's been great.
I'll make a motion that we move item number 6, new business, and table it to the next meeting.
So, I'm trying to get a date on it, y'all so fast.
That's fine.
Motion by Mrs. Jones, and who was second, Mr. Deloach, is that right? All in favor say aye to table this to the next meeting. All opposed, no. And it is tabled to the next meeting. Very well, thank you. Item number 7, consideration to approve to adopt a resolution to set the 2018 qualification fees.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, each year we're required by state law to set qualifying fees for county governing authorities, and we have to fix these fees and publish them in our local paper prior to February 1st. You have the information there that has been gathered by our HR department on the salaries for each of the positions that are up for election this year. As it pertains to commissioners, that will be the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th district commissioners.
I was noticing if we would increase these fees to about $20 million, we could pay for these roads.
You could, absolutely. It's a great
Doesn't
suggestion.
have to buy no cable.
Chairs.
Stephanie, would you repeat which districts did you say?
2nd, 3rd, and 5th. And then it's the 1st and 4th district of the Board of Education, the Solicitor General, and the State Court Judge.
You've got the amount of fees before you in your agenda packets. Any discussion on these fees? Are these the same fees that were last year, or the state sets them, right?
The state sets the percentage, and this year it's remained as it's been, 3%.
Okay. Very well. Any other discussion? Do you have a
Make a motion to approve alternative number 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Loper to approve alternative number 1. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 8, consideration to approve to appoint a member to the 4th District seat of the planning board.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This seat was vacated by Mr. James Stansel, who I believe will be sitting on another board. Commissioner Loper has given a recommendation to appoint Mr. Brad Smith to that seat.
Any discussion? What's that name of Ras?
Brad Smith.
Brad Smith. Okay. All right. Any other recommendations or discussion? Have a motion to appoint Mr. Brad Smith to the seat of the planning board, 4th District.
Make a motion to approve order number 1, second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second by Mr. Kiefer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And Mr. Smith is appointed. Item number 9, consideration to approve a list of candidates for the hospital board.
Let's see what I mean. At your October 17th meeting, the seats for appointment were the 2nd District and the 4th District. Mr. Jason Ripley was appointed to that 2nd District seat, and Ms. Julie Dickey was appointed to the 4th District seat. That term was set to expire in February of this year. Commissioner Loper has a new list of individuals he'd like to have sent to the hospital board for consideration.
Okay, we have Mr. Mosmont.
Yes, Mr. Mosmont, Dr. Brenda Whiteman, and Mr. Bill Sellers.
Any discussion? Alternative 1 is to approve those 3 sent to the board. Do I have a motion for alternative number 1?
Make a motion to approve order number 1, second.
Motion by Mr. Lopez, second Mr. Deloach. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 10, consideration to approve to change the February 6, 2018 meeting to February 7th. I see the conflict you had right there.
Yes. That's the conflict we have.
That's right, you're going to be out of town on a training.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I never want to miss a meeting, so.
We don't want to take the minutes ourselves.
That's right.
So I appreciate
You
that.
have to review everything.
That's right.
I'm afraid of that.
So any discussion, any issue, any problem with changing that meeting?
It's from Tuesday to Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Not for schedule.
Forrester have Ms. Whitebacks.
I'll make a motion to approve alternative number 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Deloach, I believe. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, we're going to be on that Wednesday, so everybody knows your calendars.
I'll send lots of reminders.
Send out a reminder.
Yes, sir.
Put it on Facebook and
I'll probably be here Tuesday and Wednesday.
All right, we're going to move to the items that we added. Item number 11. We're going to need to formulate a motion for, I think it was the 5th alternative. What is 5 alternative?
Yes, it's going to be.
And we can make a motion to approve that alternative.
I think there's a couple
All right,
of
we'll do that. And we can actually make a motion and then have a discussion. So the motion is.
Yeah.
Not the only motion, but
Now,
as
we
motion.
have a motion and a second, make sure we got that down, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss the motion. And really, we don't follow Robert's rules, but that's the kind of thing you do, Robert's rules, discuss it after the motion.
If you'd like, I can make a motion on number 5. Word it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve alternative number 5, replace chip and seal surface treatment with the items that's listed under that category with the cost of $1.42 million.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones to approve alternate 5 for chip and seal. Estimated cost is how you read it, not a maximum cost, but estimated cost $1.14 million.
You can estimate it to be fine.
Okay. And we have a second by Mr. Deloach.
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, before we take a vote, we'll see if we can get a discussion. We'll turn to our public first. Is anyone that didn't get a chance to comment or would like to address it? Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Cynthia Arnsdorf. And I'm glad I'm last because a couple of the comments I didn't want to really say, but I will say them now because the room's not full. Number one, I want to thank all of you for serving because I would never sit in your seat. So I'm truly grateful that we have people that step up in the county to take these positions. That being said, it is a big responsibility. And too often in this county, I was, like I heard someone over here comment, shocked to find out that Georgia Pacific was absolved of any responsibility on the coal ash. And that's not unusual in this county. I know of industry coming in left and right that the county absolves them of any environmental damage before they will even come into the county. Effingham, Georgia Transformer was one of them. And I'm not saying they're a good player or a bad player, I'm just saying it should not be done. Also, I'm going to say, since you can't go back to Georgia Pacific, I think they probably are going to make a pretty hefty profit with the tax changes next year. And I also know they put a lot of money out in grants and so forth that go outside of this county, that don't stay in this county. So I would suggest that as commissioners, somebody approach Georgia Pacific, even though they're not legally responsible. We did help them out, the county did, by taking it off their hands, because I'm going to ask you what were they doing with it prior and what are they doing with it now. There are costs that they were absolved from by giving it and bringing it into the county's coffers, so to speak. Just a couple side notes. On my road, I live on Springfield Egypt Road in the northern part of the county. A lot of the surfacing wasn't done early in the like 2004, 2005. My road was done probably around 2008, 2009. So some of you were serving on the county commissioners council, I believe, at that point in time. I don't know for certain, and I don't know when it was stopped. That was a question I also had, knowing that this has been an ongoing process. When did the county quit accepting it and using it? On my particular road, I think it needs to be looked into, and another person had commented too, that trucks and logging trucks had caused a lot of damage. Where we had an issue on Springfield, Egypt, at least the area that I live on, and fortunately I'm the first house off of 21, so I don't have to drive down the road very far, but it's where we already had issues. So you know the process, you had to wait 6 months to a year, where we lived with the ash getting into our lungs, which who knows what long-term damage. And I'll just throw out as an aside, I did call the public health department at the state level back about 2009, 2010, because I do serve on some medical nonprofits nationwide. I'm up for one for the FDA, as a matter of fact. And I had concerns back then because it was so corrosive. I know it was encapsulated and that issue did end, but there were a lot of potholes over the next couple of years, and a lot of them were formed by trucks. That is where the issues on my road are coming from, the potholes. So it wasn't the initial encapsulation of the ash, and I don't know who you hired or who came back and filled in a lot of those potholes, but I don't know if it's like you said, Reggie, it was done at different levels, or if it was different materials. So you might even want to check some of those materials to see what they used to fill in all those potholes, if that's where some of the bigger issues, especially in the northern part of the county. That being said, I will be very brief. I'd like to know who's going to pay to get my car washed, because I've been having to get it washed every 2 days. As a matter of fact, the gentleman, the young man who's the manager at the car wash I go to in Statesboro, lives on a road, Ash Road in North Effingham. And he has told me there's been increased traffic, and the only thing that'll actually take it off is vinegar, not soap and water. That's his words, not mine. And I know you all, many of you have children and grandchildren and so forth. And if that's what it's taking, when you start this new process, and I tend to, it's too late now, and not that my one voice would make a difference, but I'm a little concerned about doing this quick solution. I'm not sure that we really have all the answers yet that's going to avoid problems 5 years, 10 years from now. But that being said, you all have, many of you, children, grandchildren that live on, or friends or neighbors on these ash roads. I want you to look at my hand. It's crippled. I've had rheumatoid arthritis since I was 13 years old. I've taken every drug known to mankind. Those who know me or know me by word of mouth know I'm a pretty tough old lady. But that being said, what you don't know is that I came down with the disease, and a trigger was industrial waste that was approved, that was used as mulch. It was the trigger for my disease. I have cousins with autoimmune disorders now. I have friends because of what we thought was acceptable. And for the few of you who don't know my background, my husband was one of the first 6 employees at EPD in Atlanta. He was from Effingham County for over 20 years. He did the final analysis of the data for every creek and waterway in the state of Georgia. And I have a lot of respect for EPD, but it's kind of like a doctor. You can go to 2 people at EPD and get 2 opinions, so good luck. That's what I want to say.
There's a few things I definitely want to speak to.
Let a few of us maybe respond to some of the things you asked about.
Okay.
A couple of things that I want to say with regard to your comments, and you made several, you asked a few separate questions, so I'll try to address at least a few of them.
Okay.
One, I can't stress to the citizens enough, when it is time we've got an election, we just set rates for people to sign up to run for county commissioner. I can't stress to the citizens enough how important it is that you try to elect somebody that does have some business knowledge and will additionally look at contracts and things like that. Because I've had to be a sunshine commissioner, and if I make a mistake, I'll say, I messed up terribly in that decision. Let's go back and see what we can do to fix it. So if I find some problems with something that's occurred in the past, I'm going to say that just as clearly. And the contracts that were signed way back then, thank God we have a new county attorney, that I don't believe he would have ever let that contract stand. If somebody's going to give you something free and they repeatedly have to be held harmless to give you something free, you might want to take a strong look at that. Okay? But with all that said, it was tested. We're going to test it again. And we're doing that for the very type of things that you just mentioned, because we care. And if there's something there that's a true health problem, then we're going to have to come back and look at it and say, we have a true health problem, we've got to do something different than what we're saying at this point. So we're serious about it. We want to do it right.
And I appreciate that, and I understand it, and I know we're doing a lot of testing of soil and water, but I think we have to, when we start doing some of this grinding, and if it's a dry period and dust, you need to really be checking the air and that too. And I truly think you should go back to Georgia Pacific, and I'm not saying they'd be bad partners. There's different people there.
Well, additionally to that, I will say this.
Yeah.
I know that the county administrator has been talking to Georgia Pacific this entire time, getting copies of paperwork and some various things to make sure everything matches up and so forth. While they may not be contractually held liable in any kind of way, I think they want to be a good citizen and partner, and there may be all sorts of things they're able to help us with moving forward. We will certainly be working towards that end. And the last thing about the car wash, the only point that I can think of to is, I'll say this. However, if you received any assistance that we help towards, some taxpayer will be paying for it. That's the only answer I know.
I was being facetious. I can afford a car wash, but some folks can't.
And we've had that question asked,
Yeah.
so that's literally why I was responding in that way. I'm not being sarcastic.
No, I know.
We don't have money. The money we have is taxpayers' money, so,
I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware. It's a small company. So.
That's for me. And then
Wrap up time. Anybody else? Thank you so much.
I'm Corey Kessler. I live at 599 Kiefer Road. If you approve option 5, is that just the initial fix, or is there going to be some type of maintenance plan to keep them maintained in the future?
Were you here during the first part of the
Yes, I was.
All right. That's option 5, allows us to buy equipment so that we can immediately address all the most hazardous areas, but that's really the biggest issues. But having the equipment, we'll be able to go back and resurface, readdress. We have a way now to start fixing these roads as they break, which we didn't before.
Okay.
So it was fit.
Having that equipment in-house will help us keep
Plus.
working every day on it.
Plus, they'll continue to be put on resurfacing, with getting down to the base and reworking things with our MIG and other monies. So this is the short-term, long-term, maintaining the current roads. But I think, as the lady just mentioned, we don't want to hopefully have this many ash roads in 10, 12, 15 years from now. If we can move down the road of eliminating some of these roads through future budgeting and growth of the county, we're going to continue to do that as well.
Thank you.
It also adds additional staff that will continually be dedicated to that as well.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Brandon and his staff, for a great job they've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I want to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi. Simona Perry of Beachy Riverkeeper. Thank you all for all the hard work you've done the past couple weeks. I know this was something you weren't expecting. I don't think some of us weren't either, but some of us were expecting it. I've heard from people who have lived on these roads for a while and have had problems for a while. I just wanted to say that my partner, Savannah Riverkeeper, and I, we are dedicated to working with the citizens of the county and the commission to find a solution to this problem, a long-term solution, and a short-term fix. One thing about the thing you're voting on this evening, I just wanted to point out, is to make sure that you're understanding what is in the material before we start mixing up more things. Because as Mrs. Arnsdorf pointed out, there are some air particles that, if we don't know what's in it, could cause some health problems. I think you need to be really careful about how you're staging this. I know there's an effort that needs to be done to clean up the roads and make them passable, but you also want to make sure in your fixing it that you're also not causing a greater problem. I've seen that happen in other places. So just be mindful of that and how it's planned, and we're willing to work with you on that as well. The other thing is, when we were driving around last week collecting samples from water from the roads that was running into streams and creeks, and also collecting solid materials from off the side of the road that have been pushed aside. One of our major concerns is that material that's been pushed aside to put the sand down so people can walk. What's going to happen to that material? It is sitting there in piles, it's uncovered, and if it dries out, it could blow around, this becomes an ash, or kids could go play in it, and we just don't know what's in it. That's the concern right now. We need to know more information about it. And so when we get our test results back, and we're interested to know what you might find, and we're interested in working with you on testing for the right parameters in this, we have national experts that we're working with that know exactly what to test to make sure we know what's in it. So I applaud you in your efforts, and just wanted you to know that. And we want to look out for the health and safety, and I know you do too, of the citizens of Effingham County. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you. We're ready to vote on this motion. Not seeing anyone else making comments, so any questions? All right, entertain, we have a motion and a second to have approval or vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, we have alternative number 5, with 1.42 million estimate. The house that we want to vote about, opposed? Okay, all right, so we're good. We got item number 12, which is to approve the testing that's presented here. I'm just going to read that, and if you agree, just make a motion in my second. Hire an independent lab to test material to ensure the public that the material is consistent with the initial data, that it is safe and free of health concerns. 3 bids received to do the samples were Whitaker Lab, GDC, and BLE, and the motion would be to use Whitaker Lab.
I'll make the motion to use Whitaker Labs to take 20 samples from our ash roads.
A second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mrs. Jones, to take 20 samples using Whitaker Labs. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. And I have just one comment. I know this board, I think, players certainly, they're very thoughtful in all they do. I'm sure if anything comes back from those 20 samples, it may be approved, but if we had any questions, I'm sure we'll expand that, you know, to the questions that were raised. We won't just be looking to justify ourselves. We'll be looking to prove what's there for sure. If there's any issues, we'll definitely want to address those, and we'll be corresponding. Okay? Well, I believe that takes care of our agenda tonight. The missing items. Do we have a need for executive session? Do you have any executive session?
Yes, sir.
Before we do that, one goes staff reports, Sam.
I have one saying no, one saying yes.
Yeah.
We do.
We do,
Staff
okay.
reports.
Let's go to our staff reports before the executive session. That would be nice to hear staff reports are and our executive sessions. That's what we might want to home.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not prepared with the staff.
I heard your staff report.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate it. Very well done. Thank you for all the hard working staff and good. Stephanie?
In your folders, you have an email that was forwarded to me from Mr. David Wood regarding courthouse and Midland Road. He has some concerns, if you could just take a look at that. And the only other one I have is I'd like to wish happy birthday to Commissioner Loper. Today is his birthday.
Oh, my goodness. Happy birthday.
Should we sing, Stephanie?
I think Stephanie should say.
Are we going to sing about it?
That's an executive session. We'll do a little.
We'll do an executive session. All right.
See, you're the person in the choir.
You just want to be on TV saying.
Yeah, I might be the next item. Who knows?
Oh, one other thing, your financials from November, it's in your folder as well, for your review. And that is everything.
Nothing else? Happy birthday, Mr. Lowe. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Y'all have to sing happy birthday.
Any other staff that city management board has anything they'd like to mention tonight? You want to raise that in the board to the side?
I do. I just want to stay on top of the Evermore landing with the new push slab, getting that working. I just want to make sure I know we're on it.
Yes, sir. That'll happen between March and May during
I have to get it bid out.
That's correct. The RFPs are prepared for both Evermore and for Steel Bridge. And we've got a limited time frame that we can do that in for the spawning and things of that nature, but one on each river.
I just want to say thank you to EOM again. Mr. Jones said that earlier. I think I spoke to Brandon and Steve more than my wife this past week, so appreciate everything that y'all did. And another thing, it was good to see Clarence Morgan here earlier, because he had 2 more stints put in. I texted him over the weekend. He said he's doing good. He said the hardest thing is trying to take it easy. Slow down.
Clarence was here the day after, the weekend, that one day.
That's always been his issue, trying to take it easy.
Yeah.
He goes 99.
I have some positive information. The people in Melbourne, of course, they want their extras taken care of, but they're so satisfied that we serviced the Melbourne Road last year, it was turned into a drag strip. They've asked that we move the speed limit sign further towards Highway 80. I don't know what type of, they suggested there's a culvert or a canal there. They asked that we move the speed limit drop to 25 miles per hour back away from Melbourne towards Highway 80. Somewhere around that.
If the road is a 25-mile-an-hour, moving the sign should not be an issue.
Well, Melbourne Road, I think, is, I don't know what the speed limit is, but it's 25 through the community. They say they get right there at that curve, and they just continue at a higher rate of speed. But we did such a good job on the road that people speed through that.
There's a process for that, I believe, the state.
They're changing the speed. I don't know if it was just moving the sign, it's the same speed limit.
Oh, no, I think it changes the speed limit.
I don't know.
The only thing through the permitting through the state is that we can post whatever speed limit that we want, even if but if you're going to run radar on it, that's state regulated, then you have to get it approved.
I don't know if that's going to slow people down, but if it's moved back, hopefully they'll decelerate before they get into the community.
If it's our road, we can post whatever we want, but we can only run radar
If it's
based
speed
on
limit at that
the speed.
location, you may just be able to add an extra sign. I don't know how far away it is.
I haven't been down there, I don't think it's 100 yards.
Yeah, if we can find out, two things. Steve, if we can find out if that's the speed limit for that whole road where it is, then it can show on radar. But if it's not, I'm learning something like, we can actually post a speed limit, we just can't run radar on it.
We can't
But
run
it still might
signals.
slow traffic down. Does that sound right to you as well?
It's been a while since I looked at it. We did this probably early last year, or the year before. on a dirt.
Depends on how many people pay attention to those signs.
Well, you have a couple of choices here too, then you can put another sign there since we have the authority to do that, which might slow it down, but you can still run radar from where it is posted, right? Where it is the 25 mile an hour.
What's approved.
You need to check that.
Yeah.
But there's a possibility that you could do on that. You know what I'm saying? Just see if
I'll pull the information, see where it's designated and approved for
We'll
radar.
get to us on the next meeting, maybe. In your spare time.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Lots of time.
Thank you guys for that. Appreciate it. Excellent. Well, okay, anything else from the commissioners? All right, I entertain a motion to go in executive session, to discuss personnel and litigation.
Make a motion to go into executive session, discuss personal property and pending litigation.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Clifford. Second, Mr. Deloach.
Yeah.
Executive session, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. Executive session.
I'm not sure where we got. We got something.
Mr. Jack, Mr. Jack.
Make a motion, go back to the regular session.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, go back into regular session, second by Mr. Forrest Floyd. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And we are back in executive session, regular session. Need a motion to approve executive session minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second by Mr. Loper, to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. And then, any other business? I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Kiefer. I'm sorry, Mr. Loper. Second, Mr. Kiefer, to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we stand adjourned.